Like when you know you've got one of these weekends coming up, what do you do before? What do you do during? What do you do after?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. The very first thing that I find that I've personally found confronting, but I think a lot of people that I talk to find confronting as well, is actually booking the darn thing in. So even before all that prep, it's like, just how often do you do it? And so I really like the idea of cadences, right? So if you're sitting there going, I just don't have time, everything's burning around me and stuff like that, just do some kind of basic cadence, like maybe once a quarter, maybe you go away for 4 nights or 4 days or something like that, or maybe once a month you get away for a night or something. Like, just try and get it into some kind of cadence, which is why I asked you the question around like the trigger points, because I'm like, wow, it's a very mature person. It's like, oh, my business is stagnant, I need to get away. Because most people are like, oh, my business is stagnant, I need to do more. I'm going to do more of the thing. And so I'm like, well, just cadences is, in my recommendation, the best way that I've got to continue doing the thing. Then book it out weeks in advance. And why do you need to book it out weeks in advance? Because what will end up happening is you actually prep for it. So, for example, us preparing for this weekend away, then I got a document that's full of questions.
It's so funny. We do the same thing.
So literally, I've spent thinking time, and like literally my thinking time is, how do Charlie and Grant make the best out of this weekend? What questions do I need answered in this weekend? What have I not been thinking about? How do I get to X? And let's just use all these thinking times to come up with questions with no answers. Just maybe I'll throw down some random thoughts, and then we'll just cover loosely.
Are some of yours just like statements?
So I've looked back and I'm like, what the hell?
I was like, I don't even know what it's just like I've written a word. It's not even a complete sentence.
But it's funny, like one of my questions, I had 10 bullet points basically trying to answer the thing. And I'm just like, oh, my brain was just at that point. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, I'm not actively trying to solve something and planning for it. I'm just getting everything in my head to go, without limitation, what do I want to think? And whilst we're here, I will continue to add to that list.
Do you know what's interesting? When you make the list before you go away, so like I've been doing this for about a couple of weeks now, is like actually like I have a part of my Apple Notes where it's like things to discuss while away. As you put them down, you start percolating on them in the time in the lead up.
Totally. Yeah. Dude, it's such a powerful moment, because like when you sit there making a coffee 2 days after you wrote this note, you're like, oh yeah. Or like you'd be listening to a podcast and someone would say something, you're like, oh, that kind of relates to that question that I put down. But
if I was actually going to ask you what podcasts and content you're consuming at the moment, that was on my list.
See, I'll just sit there and I'll just like pick over your shoulder when you're reading in the morning. I'm like, oh, what's he reading?
All right, so doing some preparation for it. Do you follow something like Keith Cunningham's thinking time process, or use that in the lead up, where you're looking for the key things, you're putting that in a list, and then you're bringing that with you?
Totally. It's funny. I still think I'm on the journey of thinking time, of trying to perfect it, right? Actually, you know what? I doubt that anyone really perfects thinking time.
Hey, make it your own, right?
Totally.
It's like cooking. It's like, as long as the meal is edible, you cook.
As long as you can eat it.
No one died. Although, I'll tell you right, if someone cooks and everyone gets food poisoning, did they cook? They still did the activity. It didn't lead to a good outcome.
So it's like when business owners, they opened a business and it didn't work, they're still business owners.
Yes, they were. So the point being is that obviously outputs matter and help.
Totally.
But thinking time is one of those, like, it's ambiguous. I don't think there is a perfect thinking time. And I think it's so individualized that it's like you want to shape it in yourself. What works for you may not work for me, or vice versa.
Totally. And so one of the challenges that I've faced with thinking time is not asking a very good question. Because I've always looked at the time that I've asked this amazing question that I wanted to print and frame on the wall and just go, that was like the greatest. I've always had the best outcomes. And so what I've actually found is that I had to do multiple thinking times on this kind of the same topic. It's like, what do I want to get away from this weekend? And I have 5 different questions that basically allude to the same thing, but then they'll all have completely different bullet points. And I'm like, it's just how you frame the question. It's how you think about the question. And that's why I'm like, I'm just not that great yet at thinking time, where I'm just like, this is the perfect question to ask that will actually solve the problem. So what I do is, when I look at something like a weekend getaway, I'm like, I know I'm going to have like 5 thinking times on this in order to expand on it. And then I'll hit some point and I'm like, that's a trash question. I need to expand on that. I need to at least think about it myself more before I go and talk to Charlie about it. And so, so coming up to it, I utilize thinking time like 5-6 times just to try and get to a good point, and then I'll kind of collate them. There'll be duplicates remove them all out, and I'm like, cool, now I think I'm ready to go.
I always try not to put too much pressure on myself to solve everything.
No, I put immense pressure on myself.
I was feeling that a little bit. But in the idea that you did this prep and you put all these questions down, I think one of the potential mistakes, and when I say potential, this is what I did, is thinking that if I write down 5 things, that I'm going to solve all 5.
I completely.
Where it's like you might solve one, but you actually might come up with a new one while you're there and make the other ones void.
Yeah.
Where it's like you can't almost treat it transactionally in that way.
It's not a to-do list. It's not a to-do list at all. Like you're not, and the reason it's not a to-do list is because you're not trying to execute on it where you just need to come out with the end with those things solved. It is more just a process of thinking and decompressing and just going, great, like where does it land?
Well, it shuts down the idea of new, right? Totally. If you come with 5 things and you're only going to solve those things, then what if you see something while you're here, or you have a conversation, or something pops up that is of potentially higher value? So the open-mindedness to that I found incredibly helpful in that.
Hey, fellow business owner, if this topic and value-packed short video has resonated with you at all, and you want to dive deeper into creating wealth inside and outside your business, check out the full episode by clicking the link on your screen or in the description right now.